There we go. How to encourage glute strength. And I was thinking a lot about it when I woke up and did yoga this morning, and dawned on me how the gluteal muscles, there's three of them, so just a little bit of anatomy. So you have your gluteus maximus, your gluteus medius, and your gluteus minimus, and they actually have very different functions. They are very synergistic with each other. They work in harmony for sure, but they also have very different actions. And if, you know, a lot of times in our modern culture, our glutes have gotten very weak, not only because we're sitting all day long, but also because of the way we stand. You know, when people stand and push their pelvis forward, it tends to turn and lock the knees. It tends to turn off the glutes very strongly. And so we tend to get overactive hamstrings and underactive glutes, which can cause a lot of imbalances, and it can affect things like walking or really any kind of movement that you're doing. So strengthening your glutes is a really important piece of keeping your hip joints healthy, your knees healthy, your back healthy, your sacroiliac joints healthy. There's a confluence in that area of your body that affects many, many joints. So it's really important for us to keep our glutes, all three of our glutes, very strong and healthy. And the gluteus medius and minimus also interlay very subtly with the pelvic floor muscles and with the deeper muscles underneath the glutes, the external rotator muscles of the body. So we're going to work with all of it today. But just to give a little, reminder, so the gluteus maximus is your main extensor muscle. So, when you are bringing your leg behind you, the extension of your leg, this is your gluteus maximus. Anytime you're bringing your leg out to the side, this is all three of your gluteal muscles contribute to the abduction of your leg. Extension is your gluteus maximus, but actually inflection of your hip, your gluteus minimus, is very involved in not allowing the head of the femur bone, when you flex your femur bone forward, some of your hip flexors kind of want to mash the head of your femur bone up into the hip socket, and the gluteus minimus creates a little space in there. So it is a hip flexor, but it stabilizes the femur bone in the joint. So obviously, all three of those muscles are very important. And it's interesting to me where the confluence that the medius and the minimus are involved in flexion and internal rotation, and the maximus is involved in extension and external rotation, but where the confluence of them come is in the abduction of your leg. So we're going to work with all of it today, do some practices to strengthen your glutes. But I also wanted to say one thing about concentric versus eccentric contractions. So concentric contraction is just flexion, like flexing your bicep. Eccentric is when you're having action in the muscle fibers, engagement in the muscle fibers while you're extending. So while you're coming out of the concentric contraction. And this eccentric contraction is where a lot of resiliency in your ligaments, well, not your ligaments, but your tendons and all the fascial tissue within the muscle fibers themselves get very resilient by doing eccentric, not just concentric contractions. So this affects our walking tremendously. So we're going to work with a lot of that today. Hopefully I haven't confused you. So let's go ahead and sit up straight and tall. Okay, let's take a moment to drop in, sink into the body. So, of course, this might be one of those practices where I geek out on anatomy a little bit, but remember that you are a full being, that you're not just a set of muscles doing mechanical actions, that we are much more full than that, and that the harmony and the symphony of our movement comes from all of our mind, body, and spirit and breath working together. So let's take a moment to feel that, to become connected with your whole, to breathe deeply. Close your eyes. Settle into your posture. Feel a sense of weight dropping down into the pelvis. Can you yield and ground, get connected? Feel the lightness of being that rises up from the pelvis. Feel the center line of the spine, the connection of your crown and tail. Are you open and free across your breath? Do you need to adjust and change the position of your shoulders at all to create some openness, spaciousness? Is your head feeling stable? Do you have to kind of lift it? Does it feel heavy? So try to find just the sweet spot where your head rests comfortably upon the vertebrae. Relax your face, soften through your eyes, melt in your skull, release through your jaw and your tongue. Deep belly breaths, so travel down again, get low in the body, feel the breath travel low in the body. See if you can bring your awareness down into the pelvic floor, the pelvic bowl. Notice how the breath moves your pelvis. All right, and then place your palms together at your heart. Offer an intention. Maybe it has absolutely nothing to do with balanced glute strength to support your movement patterns. Maybe it's something completely different that you're working with. Just bring the awareness, mind, body, spirit awareness into your practice. All right, and then let's release the hands and come onto our back. All right, so as you come to lie down, just enjoy yourself for a moment. Feel the weight of your body resting on the floor. Feel the heaviness in your limbs. Let your shoulders and your arms drop. Let your femur bones drop. Feel the weight of your calves. Just take a moment to feel the whole weight of your body yielding into the floor. Give yourself over. Scan and notice if there's any places that need your love and care today. And some of what we do might need some modifications, so trust yourself, listen to the inner speak of the body to know what's right and might be too much for any part of you. All right, and let's stretch our arms overhead, lengthen through the sides. Okay, reach, reach and reach and reach. This always makes me want to yawn. Maybe it does for you too, maybe it doesn't, but just follow the body. Okay, stretch the right side, lift the left hip up toward the shoulder, stretch the right side, the left side, and lift the right hip up. Let the pelvis move in this action so we're not just being stuck. Let the shoulders move, let the spine move a little bit. And then relax your arms and pick up your knees and bring them toward the chest. And just rock around a little bit. How's your back today? How's your sacrum, your sacroiliac joints, your hip joints? Okay. Let's circle the knees one way. Let's circle the knees the other way. And then let's circle the knees away from each other and start to notice the range of motion in your hip joints, the discrepancy that might be there between the two sides of your pelvis, the two hip joints themselves. Do they have the same kind of range of motion or different? What are your patterns, your history, your injuries? And then bring your right knee into the chest and give it a good squeeze. And notice if you have any pinching in the front of your hip joint, experiment. Do you want to go out to the side a little bit? Do you want to come in toward the middle a little bit? Sometimes going out, out to the side, that will engage that gluteus medius just enough to create a little room in the hip joint. So notice if bringing your knee a couple of inches out to the side and bringing your knee towards your chest eliminates that if you have some compression and pinching in the hip joint with flexion.
Roll out your toes, spread out your feet, open the eyes of the bottom of your feet. Be thankful for bare feet. There's a lot of kinesthetic chains from our feet to our glutes that we're going to explore a little bit. So just enjoy the bareness of your feet and the eyes that are opening. Bring your left knee into the chest, right leg stretches long. And experiment. Where do you want this knee to be? Experiment with little pockets of places where it feels best to flex, most comfortable to flex the hip joint. Extend the spine. Still moving the feet around, wake up the calves, the muscles on the outside of your shins. And then relax that leg down onto the ground. Stretch your arms overhead. Deep breath, maybe your legs are wide. Exhale, bring your head up. Tuck into a little ball. One more time, big and wide, open stretch. Exhale, chin up. Next time we come around to the starfish broadness, squeeze your legs, squeeze your glutes. Notice if you have more strength left or right. Squeeze the whole body. Everywhere you can find, give a little squeeze to. And then relax that and bring the knees into the chest. Okay, rock around a little bit. Put your feet down onto the ground, wider than the hips or in line with the hips, you decide. We're just going to go left and right through the little twisting action here. This might be kind of a big thing to do right away in the beginning of our practice, but if you want to, drop knees left, pick left foot up and put it on the outside of right knee, and just feel the outside of the pelvis, the outer rim of the pelvis open a little bit. And then lift that knee up, change sides, drop knees right, pick up right foot, put it outside of left knee, and notice what's happening on the back outside part of your pelvis here. Is it different than the other side or not? So the gluteus maximus is the only of the gluteal muscles that attaches to your sacrum. Your gluteus medius and minimus, they attach onto the pelvis, not onto the sacrum. So they're really much more involved in the hip stabilization than they are in creating that back bending kind of feeling where you're utilizing the sacrum. All right, put your feet back down onto the ground, bring your knees up, rock one more time, and then let's go ahead and roll over onto our side and come up onto our hands and our knees. So as you come to all fours, start out with just some classic cat-cows, arching the back, rounding the spine, taking your time to feel the movement of your vertebrae. How do you want to breathe? Are you breathing? Do you want to stay put in one little spot for a while? Do you want to move? And then just start circling around, doing any kind of movement that feels good. You can circle through the pelvis if you want. You can circle through the shoulders. You can move your head around. What part of you needs some opening, some awakening? All right, and then when you're ready, turn this way so you can see. Drop the hips over to the left and just stretch the outside of the hip a little bit. And then come back up and go over to the other side. And one more time, each side. Over to the left you go. And over to the right you go. All right, find your way up into dog pose. Spread out through the feet. Feel free to move here. You can bend a knee, stretch the opposite heel down. Find some stretch through the calves, through the hamstrings, some movement in the ankle joints. Feel free to lift at the hip and let the other knee kind of roll in and bend. Any kind of movement that's awakening for the body. And don't forget, movement sometimes is our best way to begin instead of just being stuck in a static hold. So feel free to move your feet around, feel the bones of your feet, feel the bones of your hands, bend some joints, loosen some joints. And then as you're ready, come into the fullness of this posture. Push off your hands hard toward the pelvis, sit bones high and wide, internally rotate the thighs. The knees are not pushed back, the femur bones head back. Find that gap, that spaciousness right at the head of the femur bones in the hip joint. And then isometrically drag your feet apart from each other. Start to wake up the TFL, the tensor fasciolata. This is the little muscle in your side hip that Your big IT band is the tendon for. It's very much a muscle that interacts, synergizes with the gluteus medius and minimus. And then release that and go ahead and come down into child's pose. Take your knees where you want them. Stretch your arms out in front of you or not. You decide where your arms are most comfortable. Lengthen through your spine. When you're ready, walk the hands over to the right side of the mat. Open the left ribs up and breathe. Come into the fullness of your whole body. Melt the head. Relax the base of the skull. And then come back to center and walk the hands over to the other side. Waking up the side windows, relax the neck. Full breaths, melt the muscles in your face, relax your forehead, your eyes, your jaw. And then come back to center. Okay. Come up onto all fours, let's have our twist. So as you're doing this, lift the right arm up in the air, find the opening. Exhale and drop that shoulder down. Find your way. Femur bones back still. Breathe deeply. And then inhale, lift that arm to the sky. Exhale and place the hand down onto the ground. Second side, left arm lifting. Drop that shoulder down. You can push through your other hand a little bit if you want. Keep the neck soft. Let the twist be organic from the breath instead of from the push. And then inhale, lift that arm all the way back up to the sky. Place your hand down onto the ground. Okay, sit on your heels for a moment. Let's just roll out our wrists just a bit. Stretch your palms, press them toward the walls on either side of you. Drop your shoulders down. Move your ears one to the other, to the shoulder and back again. So opening up a little bit of pathways. We're going to be on our wrists for just a little bit so we get some things open there. Inhale. Lift up onto your shins, open big and wide through your shoulders, and come back down. Place your hands down onto the ground. If you don't want your hands onto the ground, you can always take forearms on blocks. If this is more stable for you, or you can take fists onto the floor. So there's lots of ways of going about doing this. We're going to start with our right leg, so take your right leg back behind you. Stabilize here. Hang out in your core. See what it feels like to stay stable through the whole 360 of your core. And once you have that, light up the hamstrings and the glutes a little bit. Try to let the glutes be the front seat drivers and the hamstrings be the back seat drivers. Extend the spine. Pulse your leg a couple of times in the air. See what it feels like to have your foot pointing straight down. So we're not internally or externally rotating the hip. This will keep all three of those gluteal muscles in firing action. And then put that knee down onto the ground. Change sides. Bring your other leg back. Engage through your core. Lift the leg up. Stabilize. Square hips and shoulders toward the floor. Are you breathing? Pulse a couple times. And notice already if you're having dominance, if you have strength in one side of your glutes more than the other. It's pretty common for us to have this. So just find as we start to wake up, find what that feels like in the body. And then place your knee back down. Come onto your back for a moment. Okay. Put your hands right at your hip bones. And just feel, so the bony parts, your ASIS, those bony parts that you feel kind of slide out to the sides a little bit. And these are some important hip flexors in here. This is your TFL area that we're going to feel. Have your feet hip width apart, your knees are bent, and we're going to isometrically drag our feet apart from each other, and you should hopefully feel the TFL and the kick in, the gluteus minimus too, you might feel. So just notice those muscles. And do this a few times, just pulling your feet isometrically apart and back in. And also notice, do you fire one side faster? So don't think about it, but feel with your fingertips which side kicks in faster first. So this is a cue to you to know where your dominance lives. And part of getting strong and stable in your movement patterns is teaching your nervous system. It's not just building strength in your muscles, but it's teaching your nervous system to fire in proper sequence. So as you keep doing this, pulling your feet apart and letting the knees kind of cave in just a little bit toward each other and then releasing it, can you find balance? Can you get it so that both sides work at the same moment in time? Are you breathing? All right. So we're going to work with this a little bit later in our practice to have the action of these hip flexors in relationship to using our glutes as our gluteus maximus as well. But for now, I just want you to notice if you have dominance, if you tend to fire one side faster. Typically, the side that you fire faster is stronger, not always, but just notice through our practice today if that side that you're feeling go faster is more dominant. Roll over onto your side and come up to dog pose. Find your breath. Spread out your hands, spread out your feet. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Lengthen through your spine. Let's come back down onto all fours. We're going to take our right leg in the air again. Take a deep breath in, stabilize through the center body, engage the glutes. Exhale, knee to nose. Inhale, bring it back out. Everything's stable as you go. Exhale, knee to nose. Now when we do this, before you bring your leg back, imagine you're pushing your foot against something heavy that you're trying to move. So create an imaginary force to push against. Feel your glutes stay on as you slowly bring that leg back. Deep breath. Exhale, knee to nose. One more time. Push into a heavy object with your foot as you're pushing it back. Feel what's turning on. Do your hamstrings turn on faster than your glutes? See if you can keep the glutes as the primary drivers. Place that knee down onto the ground. Second side. Just bring the leg out at first. Stabilize through your core. Find your glutes. Notice if you're a hamstring dominator. See what it feels like to turn on your glutes. Exhale, knee to nose. Inhale, bring it back. Exhale, knee to nose. Now start your imaginary heavy object that you're pushing with your foot. Notice the difference in your glute activation when you do this. Stretch the leg back all the way. Don't forget the last bit of straightening the leg, lifting the leg. Exhale, knee to nose. Take your time with your breathing. Keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. Push an imaginary, whatever you're pushing. I'm imagining them kind of pushing a wall away, but whatever you've got in your head. And then exhale and relax. Come up to dog pose. Lengthen and stretch your hamstrings and your glutes. Feel the fullness of your body. Take a deep breath in. We're going to lift our right leg up in the air. Pulse that leg a couple of times. Feel the glutes turn on here. Exhale, knee to nose. Push that imaginary wall back. Keep pushing, pushing, pushing. Stretch that leg all the way up in the air. Now we get to bring our foot all the way forward into a lunge. Lengthen the spine. If you have blocks, take them. Let's start our movement pattern we often do. Straightening the front leg. You don't have to go all the way straight. Tucking the chin toward the chest as you do so. Bringing your knee forward, coming into a lunge with your heart extended. So moving back and forth. See if you can feel that kinesthetic chain from the base of your skull all the way to the bottom of your foot. All right, come into a lunge. Walk your back foot forward. Inhale for a halfway lift. Stretch your spine. Internally rotate the thighs. Lift and widen the sit bones. Isometrically drag your feet apart now like we were doing on the floor. Can you feel symmetry? Are you firing simultaneously? Exhale and melt. Bend your knees. Inhale, rise all the way up. Arms to the sky. And then exhale and fold back down again. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and release. Step back to dog pose. Lengthen through the spine. Inhale, lift the left leg up in the air. The hips are square. Pulse a couple times if it feels good. Knee to nose. Exhale. Push an imaginary thing away. Lifting that leg, feeling the fullness of your glutes as you lift that leg up in the air. Bring your foot all the way forward, come into a lunge. Extending the spine, starting to work with movement. Blocks are nice. Squaring the hips. Don't forget to bring the chin toward the chest so you feel the stretch along the full back line of the body, not just the glutes and the hamstrings, but feel that connection through the spine as well. Are you breathing? Where do you want to breathe? Where do you want to inhale? Where do you want to exhale? All right, let's bring our back foot forward one more time. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and release. Back down. Rise up, push off your feet, lifting your arms to the sky. Take your feet wide on the mat and come to a squat. Okay, so find your feet. Feel the arches lift into the inner groins. Feel the pushing of your feet down into the ground. Activate your glutes a little bit more. So as we push, this is the feedback for the nervous system to turn on glutes, because if you're pushing straight up, that's the glutes doing that. So just turn a little bit of it on by yielding into the floor and having a little more than a yield, a little push into the floor. Extend the spine. Keep breathing. Let your thighs turn on a little bit. All of these big powerhouse muscles in the body, they really enjoy working. And then inhale, stand up straight and tall. You get to decide now how wide you want your feet to be. And you also get to decide whether you want your feet turned out or straight. So try to track where your knees go. So if you squat and your knees go in, make sure your feet are, you find your feet-knee connection. Okay, so we're gonna go up and down a little bit. So take a deep breath in, exhale, and we're gonna come to squat. You decide, do you want your legs closer, further? So find your sweet spot. As we go up and down, also find how deep of a squat you wanna be. If your knees are a little cranky, maybe your squat is here and you're not going further than this. If your knees feel healthy, maybe your squats are much lower. So you find, you do you, okay? So you're going to get the activity through your glutes no matter what you're doing. Okay, we're going up and we're coming down. Use your feet. So when you come down, before you come up, feel your feet. Push into your feet and let your feet help turn on your glutes. So it's the full range, all the way up to the top with straight legs. You decide, maybe you want to try a few with your legs much wider. And just see what your body's calling for. The knees, if they're not happy, do not go far. Okay, now we're going to hang out one more time in a squat. Take your femur bones back. Sit bones are wide. Find your breath. And then so slowly push off your feet and come up to stand. Reach the arms to the sky. Exhale and fold forward. Come into Uttanasana. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Let's step our left foot back. Our right foot is coming forward into a lunge. Find your way here. Now, if you want to have some little help of your glutes in that front leg when we come into standing poses, push your front foot into the floor. As you come up, find your balance. Push your foot into the floor to help activate your front glute. Your back leg is a little easier to activate your glutes because you're in extension. Feel the freedom of lifting your arms or bringing your arms wherever you want them to be. Keep pushing into both your feet. Find your breath. Relax the shoulders down and away. If you have trouble tracking your knee, come higher. You don't have to go deep in this pose to feel the work in your glutes. Even if you're very high in the pose, pushing your foot into the floor will activate a lot happening in the front leg. Deep breaths in, let's twist. Turning to the side, shoulders drop away from the ears. Find the midline so you're not pulling the knee into rotation. And then inhale, reach the arms up, place the hands down onto the ground, step back to a plank. Whole body pose, take your breath fully and deeply, lots of core. Feel the inner spiral of your thighs, widen your sit bones. Slowly lower yourself down to the ground, however is comfortable for you. Inhale, cobra pose, gentle, don't go too big. Exhale and melt back down. Put your hands underneath your forehead for a moment. Let's pick up our kneecaps, so curl your toes under, take your legs wider. So you're already having some abduction. Remember, this is the action that all three of your glutes work for. Take a deep breath in and lift just your legs. Find the muscles along your sides. Find your gluteus maximus. Notice if you have dominance. And then let's release the legs down. Pay attention to your back. Make sure you're using your core muscles to protect your spine when you're extending your legs. To feel the full top edge of your gluteus maximus muscles, curl your toes under, turn your legs out like a ballerina, so you're on the inside edge of your kneecaps now. Take a deep breath and lift your legs up. So you might feel the very top rim of your pelvis work a little harder. The top fibers of the gluteus maximus will get a lot more engaged when you turn your feet out. And then release and relax. Wag your hips, release and let go. Now turn your kneecaps straight down to the ground. Take a deep breath, internally rotate your thighs. You don't have to turn your feet toward each other or anything, but just find the inner spiral and pull your legs apart from each other with the inner spiral. Notice you might have lost that top fibers of the gluteus maximus, but you've gained all your gluteus medius and minimus too. Find your breath. Release and let go. Come up onto all fours. Swirl things around, let go of that. Notice if there's any tension in your spine. What do you need to do to free it up? Does child's pose feel better? Does some swirls through your pelvis feel better? Does a sway from side to side feel better? Spread out your feet, lift up to dog pose. Lengthen through your spine, femur bones up and back. Deep breath. Let's bring our left foot forward. Come into a lunge on this side. As you come up, experiment with pushing your foot into the floor so that you have that strength. Notice if you're dominant, notice your dominance. Do you have dominance? Maybe you don't. Maybe you're one of the few lucky people that feel really balanced left and right. Put your arms in a comfortable place. Extend the back leg. Try to not overpower. So your glutes on the back leg are active, but you want to balance that with the core so that you're not compressing. Remember, your gluteus maximus attaches onto your sacrum, so it will move your sacrum. So let's balance that with a lot of front body core support. Deep breaths in. Push your front foot into the ground. Spread out the bones of your foot. Let's twist when you're ready. Turning to the side. Find the midline. Try not to let your knee fall out or in. Deep breaths. And then unwind that. Lift the arms to the sky. Place the hands down onto the ground. Back foot comes forward. Soften into Uttanasana. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt. Come on up. Rising to the sky. A block between your knees can be very helpful for chair pose if you want it. So if you feel unstable in your knees at all, try working with a block between your thighs. If your knees feel okay, your toes can come together or apart, whatever you want to do. Your arms can come up in a traditional chair posture, or you can bring your hands lower to facilitate better breathing or softer shoulders, whatever is working for your body. Draw the knees back into the pelvis and see what it feels like to find the little push in your feet. Can you feel as you move your feet as if you're about to push yourself up, but you're not pushing yourself up? Find that isometrics right there. Engage through your glutes. Find your breath. See what it would feel like to pull your feet apart from each other to activate those hip flexors, the TFL, the gluteus medius, gluteus minimus. Deep breath in and out. Okay. Then we're going to slowly start to straighten our legs. Breathe. Don't forget to breathe. When we come back down, I want you to go so slow. So here's this eccentric contraction of the glutes. We're coming into chair pose super duper slow. Notice if you lean into your dominant foot, find balance as best as you can. Hold the isometrics of it once you're here. Full breaths. Maybe your arms want to do something different. Okay, now see what it feel like. Drop your weight into your right foot. Maybe your left foot just lifts in weight, especially if your block is between your thighs. Maybe you just unweight your left leg. Maybe your left leg lifts off the floor. Find your breath. Deep breath in and away. Put that foot down onto the ground. Inhale, stand up. Exhale, second side. Coming into chair pose, all your weight into your left leg. If the block's between your thighs, maybe just hover the right leg. Maybe you're lifting the right foot off the floor. It does not have to go far. You don't have to lift it up high. Just a little hover in a bent knee squat. Push your foot into the floor. Feel your glutes kick in here. Engage through your core. And put your foot down. Inhale all the way up. Exhale and fold in half. Halfway lift. Exhale and release. Step back to dog pose. Feel the stretch through the hamstrings, through the glutes. Isometrically drag your feet apart again. Find those outer hip muscles. Inhale, lift your right leg up in the air. Exhale and bring that foot forward. Come into a lunge. Plant your back heel down onto the ground. Come up into Virabhadrasana. One. Okay, so find what's right in this pose for you. How deep do you want to go in this lunge? Maybe you want to back away and be a lot less deep. What can you do to push the foot into the floor, to give work into the hips or into the glutes? Stretch into the back leg. The glutes are working hard. Can you feel the upper fibers right across the top of the pelvis of the glutes working on this leg because our leg's externally rotated a bit? Find your breath. Exhale and release the hands down onto the ground. One leg, find half splits. Blocks are nice. Put your hands on blocks to give you some extra height. Square the hips, just like when we were on our hands and knees. Pulse that leg a couple of times. Find your breathing. When you're ready, exhale, tuck knee behind knee. Actually, everybody stand up for a minute. If you can't do jiva squats, if this tucking thing and straightening is really hard on the stability of your knee, you can do curtsy squats. So just like you're at the ball, okay, you can just do some curtsy squats. All right, so find either one. Either we're going to start in half splits and come into jiva squats and then back out again using your breath, or you're going to come in and out of some curtsy squats. Lengthen the spine on the way out. Draw yourself in. Breathe. Remember that when we push off the floor on the way up, this starts the glute engagement. So work from the foot up. Okay, slowly come down. Can you feel that eccentric contraction on the way into the squat as much as the concentric contraction on the way out? Place that foot down next to the other foot. Give your thigh or your hamstring and your glutes a break. Extend the spine. Exhale and melt. Step your left foot back. Right foot's forward on the mat. Lunge. Plant the back heel down onto the ground. Inhale and rise up into Virabhadrasana. One. Heel back, heels down. Feel the upper fibers. When you come into this squat, can you feel right along the top edge of your pelvis? This is the top fibers of your glutes, so feel what they feel like. Press your foot into the floor. Find the extension as you lift up. Are you able to still square the hips a little bit by dragging your back foot in toward the midline? Check in with your knee and make sure that the glutes are doing the work and not the hamstring. So you want the hamstring to be the backseat driver. If you hyperextend your knee, you'll lose your glutes a little bit. So a little softness in the knee. And then place your hands down onto the ground. Kick up into half splits. Lengthen through your spine. Feel your standing leg hip. Isometrically drag that standing foot up out to the side to work with the outer hip muscles, the gluteus medius, minimus, and the TFL. Stretch that leg. Engage the glutes in the air. Either choose to start doing your jiva squats, or perhaps you're doing your curtsy squats. Whichever you're choosing to do, make sure you're breathing. Okay, so the breath is the most important gateway that you have here. Can you feel that sense of going slow into eccentric, slow into concentric? The concentric, when you're pushing off your foot, make sure you're leading from the feeling in your foot. Let that originate. Teach the nervous system time to turn the glutes on. All right, and then let's put your foot down onto the ground, 2 feet on the ground. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and melt back down. Just stretch for a moment. Feel free to take your feet wider. Relax. You can grab onto your elbows if you want to. What's feeling good? Straight legs, bent legs. Deep breaths. Bring your hands down onto the ground. Step back to a plank. Hold steady here. Feel the symmetry in your body. Seek the symmetry in your body. If you have dominance, teach yourself to move away from that dominance as best as you can. Lower yourself down to the ground safely. This time you get to add arms to what we did before. So you can have your arms down, or your arms out, or your arms up. And we're going to do some kicking. Okay, so like in the pool, lift up your legs, lift up your arms, and feel the cross lines in the body. The gluteus maximus, remember, it attaches onto your sacrum. So when you feel that cross line of your lats on the left and your glutes on the right, or your lats on the right and the glutes on the left, hug them toward each other and then release. And find that cross work in the body. Straight legs. We're kicking from our hips, not from our knees. Engage your core. All right, and then relax that. Come back either to child's pose if that's too deep of a posture for you. Right after a back bend, do some swirls, some sways. Find what feels good. And then release and come back to child's pose. Find your way up, dog pose. Deep breath in and out. Right leg lifting up to the sky. Exhale, bring the foot forward. Either plant your heel down or lift it up. Crescent lunge or Vera 1. We're going to find our way into Vera 3. So arms stretch back, out or above. Back is the most stable. Hop up onto that right foot. Push into the straight leg stance. Engage your glutes in the air. See if you can find the foot pointing straight down instead of externally rotating so that you have that capacity to turn on both the gluteus medius minimus and the gluteus maximus. Extend, excuse me, extend the spine. Full breaths here. Soft knee that you're standing on. Push off that floor to engage the glutes on your standing leg. Lift the leg in the air on your leg in the air. Just lift it so the glutes are activated. And then a big giant step back. Heel down or up. Walk your foot forward. Inhale, arms up. Deep breath. Hands to your heart or down at your sides. Pause here for a moment. Feel your yielding. Give yourself a moment to just be in your breath. Slow yourself down. Soften the knees. So notice, do you push your pelvis forward and lock your knees? When you stand, are your glutes active? Now that they're getting a little fatigued, you should be able to feel it. So when you bend your knees just a little bit and you have that sense of yielding, breathing into the bottom of the feet, connecting with the earth, can you feel that your glutes are just ever so slightly on? Versus lock your knees back, push your hips forward, and notice if your glutes are on. Okay? So try the difference between the two. Femur bones back, knees a little soft, spine upright. Little tiny bit of glute activation just in standing. It's not a lot, but it's something they're awake. Right? And now lock the knees, push the pelvis forward, and notice if your glutes are awake. Okay? So even just the subtle way we stand, standing in a yielding posture where our joints are loose and our center of gravity is stable requires the teeniest bit of work, but ultimately when you get comfortable being in that position, it feeds you energy. The earth feeds you energy instead of you locking yourself out from the energy. So it might feel like work in the beginning, but ultimately it's a teeny bit of give for a whole lot of receive.
Inhale, lift the arms to the sky. Take a deep breath in, exhale, and fold forward. Inhale for a halfway lift. Exhale and release, back down. Left foot forward, right foot back. Come into either Virabhadrasana 2 or crescent lunge, or Vira 1 or crescent lunge. Arms go where you want them to be. Find your stability, push off your front foot. Exhale and release your torso down. Put your arms in where you want them. Remember, push off your foot to find the stability in the posture. Isometrically drag your foot on the ground out to the side. Even if it's just in your head, it'll activate some of those muscles. Engage the leg in the air. Engage your core. Stretch your spine. Deep breaths in and away. If you wobble in your knee and you feel like you cave in, try bending your knee just a little bit. It'll actually be more work, but it sometimes can stabilize. Deep step back, come into a lunge, crescent lunge or Vira 1. Exhale and release your hands back. Come on to all fours. Okay. Find some cat-cows, finding some deep inhales, some deep exhales. And then as you're ready, stretch back into child's pose for a moment. Lengthen through your spine. Deep breath in and away. Now, one more thing to do standing, and then we're going to get on the floor. Come up onto your feet and stand up. 2 ways to do this. One if you're stable, one if you're not feeling so stable. So first, we're just going to come into some side movement. So it's okay to tip your torso a little bit, but try not to tip all the way. So find that upward action through the upper body. You don't have to be completely upright. You can tip a little bit. Experiment with turning the foot out and turning the foot in. Just play with where that changes things in your body. And maybe you're staying here, and maybe you want to come into some squats here. So we can come in and push back out. It's tricky to be on one leg, so you can always just stay here and come in and out with your foot down on the ground, or you can bend. Let's do one more. And then put that foot down onto the ground, 2 feet on the ground. Find your yielding. Breathing. And let's go ahead and find the other side. Okay, so we're tipping over. Maybe you're staying. Maybe you want to experiment with turning the toes in and out. Find your breath. Once you're ready, keep the foot turned in instead of turned out. Maybe your squats are just coming back down and coming back out. Maybe you're squatting. Well, I'm a little less balanced on this leg, and then coming out. So find what you want to do. Maybe it's a teeny squat, where you just bend a little. Make sure you go to the full extension with your hips too, so full extension. Let's do one more. And then put your foot down onto the ground, fold forward. There's so many more things we could do, but that's all we're gonna do for now. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and melt. Let's come on to our back. A little teeny bit more work to go. So remember, in the beginning of class, let's try that same action. Okay, so you're going to isometrically pull your feet apart, just like we do in Uttanasana and dog pose sometimes. Put your hands on the slope of your hips. Feel those muscles kick in. Maybe you have a little bit more balance now. Maybe your nervous system, is a little bit more online. Just see what you're feeling as you pull your feet isometrically apart and then release them. So nothing's actually moving in your feet, but you should feel these muscles in the outer hips kick in. So now we're going to add, when we come up into a back bend like bridge pose, oftentimes if we're relying just on our gluteus maximus, we'll splay our knees. And this is normal because that's the action of the gluteus maximus. It's a hip extension and external rotation. So
It's normal for our knees to want to splay out, but it's not structurally sound for our knees or our hips. So we have to have the counterbalance of the gluteus minimus and medius, which internally rotate our thighs, in balance with the gluteus maximus to lift us up. Biomechanically, it's very hard to do that once you're up, so better to start with the internal rotation in the way we just practiced before lifting up. So as long as your gluteus medius and minimus are turned on, once you add the maximus, which is stronger, you'll stay in that neutral plane, hopefully, and not splay the knees out. So take a deep breath. Isometrically drag your feet apart. Turn on those hip flexors. From that action, start to lift the pelvis up in the air. Don't worry about going super high because we're going to go up and down. Okay. Now, the eccentric contraction and the concentric contraction, we want them slow. So this is the eccentric on the way down. Remember, this is what's going to build a lot of resiliency in the fibers of your muscles and your tendons. Both will. I mean, both forms of contractions will. But we tend to ignore the eccentric sometimes. So concentric on the way up. Feel the feet pull apart. So you're already turning on the gluteus minimus and medius. Then the maximus joins the party. So your knees are aligned with your hips and not turned out. And then slowly, slowly lower the legs down. Eccentric contraction of your glutes. Now I'm hoping that you've been very glute-centric and your hamstring attachments are kind of, they're obviously your hamstrings are working for this posture. But my hope is that you've got your glutes, which are stronger, turned on. Pull your feet apart, lift the hips so that you're not relying on the hamstrings to do all the work. So a lot of times I've heard the cue, soften your glutes in a back bend. Let's try that. And that's not a good thing to do. The reason for it is people don't want you to cram your sacrum up, which is what the gluteus maximus will do. But if you balance with the gluteus medius and minimus with that slight internal rotation, there's space across your sacrum. So you don't have to soften the glutes. You can use them and not over-rely on your hamstrings. Slowly lower your pelvis down to the ground. Okay. All right, so let's bring our knees into our chest. Rock a little bit. Full breaths in and away. Pull your knees apart and back in. Perhaps, let's do this first before happy baby pose. Grab your strap, wrap it around your right foot, lift that leg straight up in the air. Right femur bones away from your right shoulder. So notice if you don't have a strap, you can hold behind your leg somewhere, not a problem. See if you can let this stretch your glutes and your hamstrings and your calf. Deep breath in and away. We're going to open up our leg out to the side. Extend the spine. Finding your breath. Lift that leg straight back up. Take the strap into the other hand. Cross it over. Press your femur bone away so that you have that stretch through the TFL, through the gluteus medius and minimus. The IT band, just feel that whole band stretch. All right, and then bring that leg back up 2 feet in the strap. Extend the spine. And then when you're ready, right foot comes down. Remember, your foot can be flat or leg can be flat. Extend the left leg in the air, soft knee. Try not to hyperextend the knee. Little micro bend in that knee. Extend the spine. Shoulders are away from the ears. Breath is deep. We're going to take the strap into the left hand. Open the leg out to the left. Stay stable through the right side of your body. Extending the spine.
that leg straight back up. Take the strap into the other hand, cross the leg over, heel the left hand in the hip crease, press the femur bone away. Extend the spine. Deep breath in, deep breath out. All right, let's go ahead and release that.
You can do this next pose on the edge of a blanket if you want, or flat on the ground, whichever feels great to you.
Pelvis is on the bolster or blanket if you're using one. Cross right thigh over left thigh, high on the thighs, and bring the knees toward the chest. Now, perhaps this isn't cutting it for you and you don't feel a stretch in your glutes. Perhaps this is like an incredible stretch in your glutes. So if you can experiment. If you'd rather do reverse pigeon pose, you can do a reverse pigeon pose. Start to breathe deeply. Long exhales. Let yourself go. And then we're going to unwind the legs. Stretch your legs straight for a moment. And then cross left thigh over right thigh, or reverse pigeon pose with left foot on right knee. So whether you're doing cow face pose upside down or pigeon pose upside down, just find what's working for you. So find the sweet spot, relax, deep breath. Go ahead and release your legs, either straightening them or come into happy baby, whatever feels good. You decide. All right, lift up your hips, get the blanket out of there. A little twist, scoot your hips right, knees up left, drop them to the side. Deep breath in and away. You can always straighten the top leg too, if you want to keep the knees together and keep the top leg straight to have added stretch through the hip. And then inhale, lift your knees. Scoot your hips the other way, knees up, drop them to the side. Deep breath in, longer breath out. Remember, stretching those exhales starts to cue the nervous system to relax. And inhale, lift up, and come into Shavasana, however your body wants to be. You can be flat on the ground. You can have your legs up on a chair or couch. You can have a bolster or blanket underneath your knees. However you're feeling most supported, especially in your hips and glutes, after all the work we've done. So take your time. Melt into the breath. Melt into the body. See if you can drop your weight into the floor. Feel the heaviness of your limbs. Melt through your skull. Feeling a sense of ease through your eyes, your cheeks, your tongue. Soften your jaw. Melt your teeth, your upper and lower palate, your tongue.
Belly soft. Breath deep. Let's begin to deepen our breathing. Start to move and stretch the body as you breathe. Find your way over onto your side as you're ready. And use your arms to help lift yourself up. As you come to a comfortable seat, feel your sense of stability, groundedness. Come into the breath. Let's offer our energy. Send your love and care outward. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.